joining us now from New York, the mayor-elect of that city, Rudolph Giuliani. Mr. Mayor-elect, welcome to the broadcast. Congratulations on your election. The New York Times this morning calls you the national spokesman for handgun licensing. The president has asked the Justice Department to study your proposal on that. I'd like to ask you, how do you think that's going to stop crime?
It's not going to stop crime, and there's no question that a lot more has to be done about it than gun control and gun licensing. What it will do is reduce some of the damage. In the 1950s in New York, 19% of the homicides were by firearm. That's now up to 75%. And the most often used weapon now for homicide in New York, and this is true of other American cities, is a 9mm weapon. So there's no question that we have to get much better control over the number of handguns, the automatic weapons. That is not going to stop crime. It's not going to end the violence. But it will mean, and this is a small gain but an important one, it will mean that the kind of damage that was done with a 9mm weapon and with a handgun, the same hatred might still be there, but the level of damage would be less if that man had a six-shooter or if that man didn't have a handgun.
Let me just read you what Dewey Stokes, the national head of the Fraternal Order of Police, said this week. He, by the way, is one of the police chiefs who supported the Brady bill. He says if you try to set up some sort of national program to license handguns, it's going to be a bureaucratic nightmare. He says it's going to take cops off the street, and he says in the end that would be counterproductive. What do you say to him?
It's no different than licensing people for driving automobiles. That isn't a nightmare. A person has to have a license. The way it would work would be, and some states already have this, and they do not constitute nightmares in those states. The problem is that all states don't have it. So a state like New York or a city like New York that has strict gun control, 90% of our handguns here come from outside the state of New York. So if we could get some control over that, we'd begin to reduce it. The simple fact is we have to try to fight back. We just can't sit here and let this kind of carnage go on. Gun licensing would help. It would also help to have task forces of federal, state, and local police focus on guns and remove guns from the hands of the most dangerous criminals, end some of the interstate movement of large stores of weapons. Some of the proposals of Senator Moynihan to add taxes to a lot of the ammunition in order to reduce the level of ammunition, all of that will help. None of it will end the hatred, none of it will turn all of this around, but we can get a lot more control over this, and we have to try to do that.
Let me ask you, just talk about a little bit about that, because that was my next question. When you talked this week, earlier, about the possibility of law enforcement that would be geared toward removing guns from the cities, you talk about it again, national task forces. How would they work, and what exactly would they do?
The way they would work is to put together the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms, the FBI, and local police to target the interstate movement of guns, so that when we made arrests, we would have them geared toward the largest shipments of guns, the large movement of automatic weapons, to start to have a uniform effort in all different parts of the country to remove guns from the hands of the most dangerous criminals. We're also going to need a lot more concentration on the hatred, why it's happening, what can be done about it. Certainly, that isn't gun control alone isn't going to turn this problem around, but we shouldn't ignore gun control just because it isn't the perfect solution to the problem.
All right. Well, are you talking, though, about some kind of new some kind of new power of search and seizure for police to go into neighborhoods and get guns?
No. What we're talking about is utilizing present law enforcement resources and the constitutional restrictions that exist, but making it a priority to deal with the interstate shipment of handguns and to make it a priority to deal with the confiscation of handguns in a legal way. Priorities mean a lot in law enforcement. Where you put your people, how you focus it, who you have working together. In New York, we have task forces to go after drugs. We have task forces to deal with terrorism. We have excellent task forces that actually began under Mayor Koch to deal with bank robbery. The level of bank robbery has gone down dramatically in New York as a result of the FBI and the New York City Police Department targeting that as a priority. So it's a question of where are your priorities, and this should become a priority for us.
One thing that's being talked about is some sort of national day of amnesty where people could turn in illegal weapons. Would that help, and would you be in favor of that?
Sure, it would help, but it would not, it certainly wouldn't have any kind of really major impact. The people who would turn in the weapons would be the people that were the least likely to do the damage. Anything that gets handguns and automatic weapons out of our streets, out of our cities, out of our states, I'm in favor of. Unfortunately, you can't do one to the exclusion of the 20 others that have to be done. We have a horrendous number of guns in this country. Just look at the numbers. 75% of the homicides last year in New York City were accomplished by a handgun. 2,000 homicides, 75% by handgun. If you didn't have handguns, you would still have homicides, but the numbers wouldn't be as large. And I mean, that isn't perfection, but that's at least moving in the right direction.
Let me ask you about something else you said along that line this week. You said in a forum there in New York, it might be socially beneficial if more decent, quote, these are your words, well-trained New Yorkers had guns. What do you mean by that?
What that means is we right now have a certain number of people that illegally possess weapons. And they're going to illegally possess weapons, whatever the regulations are, because they're afraid. Those people, in essence, should come forward, be licensed, be taught how to use a gun, show that they know how to use a gun, and they can operate it safely and know what to do with it when they have it in their homes. The socially beneficial part of that would be that some of the illegal possession now would turn into a regulated possession in which people would know what they were doing with the guns. There, what you would do is you'd reduce some of these horrible accidents that occur. And what they found in Canada when they did this was they were able to slash the suicide rate by 50%. It's a different purpose, but a socially beneficial one.
Do you yourself have a gun?
No, I do not. But I know, but I've been trained in using a gun, and I had four uncles who were police officers, so I have a certain familiarity with guns.
There is a story in Newsday this morning, the New York newspaper, that says that one problem that they are finding is that when police departments around the country upgrade and go to the automatic weapons and so forth, and they're trading in the police revolvers they have now or selling them because it's too expensive to destroy them. Do you think that ought to be changed?
Yeah, sure. We shouldn't be have commerce in guns. Once a gun is turned in by the police, it should be, if it can't be destroyed immediately, at least it should be stored someplace that's safe and taken out of circulation. The more, again, the more that we can reduce the large number of handguns in our society, the faster we're going to start moving this in the right direction.
So you're not going to let the New York City police trade in their guns or sell the old ones when they get new ones? You're going to make them destroy them or keep them?
It makes much more sense to have a program in which we take guns out of society rather than add to the number of handguns that are already there. There are more than enough handguns in America right now to take care of us for probably the next 50 years.